and welcome to another episode of Real Talk. 92.5 WLSD The Vault. Tonight we're going to get into a movie that takes us back to 1991, starring a young Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter. What movie am I talking about? It is none other than Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. But before we get into tonight's show, please go to all of our social media pages. That is the Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, The Other People's Show. Like and subscribe, and it would be much, much appreciated. So we're going to dive back and, after last week's double feature with Roadhouse, I was really unsure where to go. I'd originally wanted to go with something more modern, something more contemporary. But I didn't know which way to go. I didn't know whether to go to an action movie. I didn't know whether to go to a drama, maybe a science fiction where, we haven't really done much of that on the show. So I decided to throw all that into the wind, since it's been windy lately. And what blew back was Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Thank you for the like. Much appreciated. If you want to watch the live stream, you can do that on the Other People's Show streaming live on Facebook. But you all might not remember Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey quite as well as you do The Excellent Adventure. And I'm going to try to uncover and peel back the layers of the movie and tell you why, or why not, this movie holds up. Or doesn't hold up. But if you don't remember, let's go all the way back to 1991. And it is the summer of 1991. Just a few weeks earlier, Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze had a little movie that was released entitled Point Break. 3 weeks later, this movie came out. And, at the time, Keanu Reeves was coming off of, he had Bill and Ted. If you remember, he was in the Steve Martin movie Parenthood. He was in that. And Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. So Keanu Reeves wasn't like Keanu Reeves is now. He's got the John Wick. He was in The Matrix. He's been in The Replacements, which is a lot of people's favorite football movie. Is it? I don't know. The Watcher, which he was kind of, his friend signed the contract. And instead of Keanu Reeves suing his friend or suing the production to try and get out of the movie that his friend signed his signature on, Keanu Reeves went ahead and participated in the movie, which is an okay movie with James Spader and Marissa Tomei, The Watcher. That's kind of a low-key movie, but it might be a movie, that could be a movie that we dive into next week. It's from the early 2000s, so a little more recent than Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. But Keanu Reeves was still building upon. He had done My Own Private Idaho with River Phoenix, but he wasn't. He had not yet done Speed. He had not yet done Johnny Mnemonic, and some of the movies that we've named earlier. And Alex Winter, as far as I really know, did the Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure. They did the cartoon series. And I think Alex Winter also did voice work on the cartoon series as well. And then he kind of fell back into Bill and Ted mode. And he's Bill in the movie. But this film is kind of set around, it begins in the future. And it begins, we'll get into it a little bit in just a moment. but it's about a tyrant from the future who creates evil android doubles of Bill and Ted and sends them back to eliminate the originals. So there's an evil lord in the future. He sends back these Bill and Ted robots that are basically Bill and Ted, and he wants to get rid of the original Bill and Ted so he can take control of the world and have the world be not in harmony and not peaceful and harmonious and things of this nature and excellent, because that's all that Bill and Ted want. Be excellent to one another. That's all they want, if you remember back. But this was from a director named Peter Hewitt, which wasn't the original director of the original movie. But Peter Hewitt, you would say, what has he done? Has he directed anything that I may have known? Now, I have heard of the movies that he has directed, and I have seen one of them other than Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Those would include the 1995 movie, I think it's a Jonathan Taylor Thomas movie, Tom and Huck, a John Goodman movie called The Borrowers. He was in, he directed Garfield, the Bill Murray, Breckenmeyer movie from 2004, and also the Tim Allen flop entitled Zoom from 2006. And that was his last movie credit. So it's been quite some time since he has actually had a movie that was on the big screen. It has been quite some time, to be honest with you. So we've got, let's get a little bit of the facts, because we always want to know a little bit of the behind the scenes and facts of how much the movie cost, how much the movie made, some interesting factoids that you might want to know. So Orion Pictures, it was the film's just distributor. It was on the verge of being bankrupt. They had spent quite a bit of money on flop after flop after flop, and some of these included Over the Top with Stallone, the He-Man movie. That was, although it was a high budget flop, which means, it cost quite a bit. It did make some money back, but it wasn't the hit that Orion originally wanted, because they had squandered a lot of the profit off of RoboCop into these other films, and they were on the verge of just being bankrupt. So they had high hopes for this movie, because the first movie, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the budget of $9 million, it made around $40 million. So it produced the toy line, comics, the cartoon, and then the sequel. So it was a very popular thing at the time. And they were hoping to replicate that success to not only be a hit movie, but to help get them from becoming bankrupt, because they've squandered all of the cachet that they had from the mid to late 80s. And here it is, 1990, when this movie is being made, and they don't see it really as a gamble, which, if you go back and you watch the movie, I don't see it as anything other than a gamble, especially after seeing the movie again. But if you remember, the mall with the building emporium was the same mall within the movie that Doc Brown shows Marty the time travel in back in 1985. So the same mall that they use in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey was kind of a same homage to the mall back in Back to the Future, because they both movies are dealing with the time travel aspect, which I guess in a roundabout way you could claim that Bill and Ted it's a science fiction comedy, I guess you could say. The ceiling of the future classroom was a leftover set piece from Mom and Dad Save the World. Now that was a movie that it was like I think it was John Lovitz was the main lead in Mom and Dad Save the World. And I'm not even putting down John Lovitz at all. He's a lovable lout, I guess you could say. But it had Jeffrey Jones, and it had maybe Terry Garr. I've never seen the film. I do remember seeing previews on VHS cassettes with the preview to this movie on there, but I've never actually seen the movie. And I think it's a hard to find hard copy and maybe even to purchase. But, that was kind of like in the early 90s. Some of these movies were getting made with these, maybe a low budget or a bigger budget than you would think that they would actually need to make this type of film. Not Bill and Ted. I'm talking about Mom and Dad Save the World. And then you're like, how did that get made? Like, who greenlit this movie about a mother and a father suburban that are, unlikely heroes going on this madcap adventure trying to save the world? Now, I don't know if that's what it's about. I have no idea. But I assume it's a mom and a dad, and they're trying to save the world, hence the title. I digress. The original title of this movie was Bill and Ted Go to Hell, but it was changed because the American audience's objection to the word. So it was changed Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which I do think is a more fitting title for this movie. Because Bill and Ted's Go to Hell makes it seem like the whole movie takes place there when it doesn't. It's only a small portion of the film. So that would be kind of a misleading title. And the Bogus Journey kind of falls in line with, like, their personas. They would say something like bogus. And they are going on a journey throughout this film. Another fact is the Circle K scene was filmed at the 7-Eleven in Canyon County. The Circle K logo and the sky behind it were computer generated. I did not know that. And there was an early draft of the script where Rufus was the villain. And if you recall, Rufus was played by a comedian, one of the best comedians of all time, and prolific, because if you go back and you listen and watch some of his stand-up from the 70s, 80s, even 90s, even 2000s, a lot of the things that he said have actually happened, which is prolific and sad at the same time. But in an early draft of the script, Rufus was the villain. And, Rufus is not really in this movie all that much. He was more of a guide in the first film, if you remember. He's sent back. He tells them, he has the trench coat, he has the shades, kind of the slick back hair, the ponytail, like George Carlin normally has. But he was kind of the guide. In this movie, he's kind of thrown to the side a little bit. He's kind of in the beginning and a little bit at the end, and that's really about it, to be honest with you. So the budget pretty much doubled. It was $9 million in the first. This one, it's about $20 million. And it made around $38 million, which was a few million less than the original. So they did make a profit, yes, but they didn't make quite the profit they did on the first film. So it was considered somewhat of a disappointment. The Rotten Tomatoes score, which that didn't exist in 91, but judging from it now, it's 55%. Audience score is at 56%, and the IMDb score is 6.3. I don't know. I'm going to tell you my thoughts on the movie Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. So let's first get into a little bit of the plot of the movie. So the plot of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey is, if you remember from the first film, they are their music is supposed to bring peace and harmony and joy globally to planet Earth. So Rufus is sent back so they can go and, learn about history to pass their history test. So they, I think it's Ted, can pass his history test so he's not sent off to military school, which would stop Wild Stallion from forming. That's basically the first one. So this plot is basically a villain comes to the future. It opens in the future. And he sends back 2 robots that look like Bill and Ted to go back, kill Bill and Ted, ruin their lives, and lose the talent competition, which would make them not get the $25,000 prize money, and record deal, which would not lead to world peace. So basically, almost the same plot, except they're not getting historical figures. So that's basically, the plot in a nutshell. It is a journey along the way because that is the name of the movie. And it's an odd journey with a lot of bumps in the road. I really do think so. But let's get into the characters of the movie. We've got Bill. He is played by Bill S. Preston Esquire. And he also plays Granny S. Preston Esquire and Evil Bill, played by Alex Winter. And, Alex Winter was one of those kind of actors that, you've seen him in 1 or 2 big movies, and then, you really didn't see him in anything else unless you were just a big Bill fan, and then you followed his career. He had made a movie, Freaks, a couple of years later, I think, in 93, 92, 93. Very small theatrical release. And I think I saw it on like one of the movie channels when I was young, and it was kind of strange and odd and a little bit grotesque. Keanu Reeves makes a cameo as a half man, half dog, I think. I think he makes a cameo as that. And we know how Keanu Reeves as Ted, Theodore Logan, and Evil Ted, we know Keanu Reeves' career. He's went on to be an actor that's endured throughout time, to be honest with you. There's not really a time that I can recall when there wasn't a Keanu Reeves gracing the screen. I think maybe Bill and Ted, Excellent Adventure might have been the first time that I'd seen Keanu Reeves in a movie. Maybe Parenthood. Then I quickly watched Speed when it came out. But then I had seen River's Edge. He was then in that film. And then he was in the one with River Phoenix that I'd mentioned earlier. So I've kind of followed his career throughout the decades. Even the small roles like Feeling Minnesota with Cameron Diaz. And in movies that Chain Reaction with Morgan Freeman, that was pretty much a DOA, Dead on Arrival. And, The Devil's Advocate with Al Pacino. So there's been these movies throughout. Replacements, Hardball, Sweet November, the Lake House. So you've got, a lot of these films. And then you've got the big ones like the John Wick films, the Matrix films. And then he pops up every once in a while. 47 Ronin. That was his last big, huge movie before John Wick kind of brought him back. Knock Knock, the Eli Roth movie. So Keanu Reeves, I could go on and on about the movies that he's been in. Whether or not you agree he's a good actor or not, he's great in Bill and Ted. That is kind of how everyone really came to know Keanu Reeves, because he plays a version of Bill and Ted in Parenthood with Steve Martin as well. And he kind of has that surfer-ish, although it's a surfing type movie, Point Break. He's shedding that image slowly of just the surfer dude. And Point Break was a perfect movie to do that as well. You've got William Sadler as Death, George Carlin as Rufus, and Pam Grier as Miss Wardrow. William Sadler. I was thinking about him the other day, and you may not know the name right off. And I'm only going to name a couple of films that I can think of right off the top of my head. But he was the main villain in Die Hard 2, Die Harder. He's the one that he's practicing his martial arts nude near the beginning of Die Hard 2. and he's the main villain in Die Hard 2 as well. He has a diverse resume. He played the villain as well in a Steven Seagal movie called Hard to Kill. I think he's Trent, Governor Trent or something. I can't recall. He's in the Harlan Williams movie called Rocket Man. Now, if you think back, it was a Disney movie from mid-90s. I think it was like 96, 97-ish. In Harlan Williams, he was the guy in Dumb and Dumber that drank the urine. And he was also in like Sorority Girls and Rocket Man. There's something about Mary. He has a bit part in that. And he's shown up a couple times throughout the years. So William Sadler was in this crazy little silly movie called Rocket Man. That I would suggest if you just want a silly good time, and that's what you're looking for. And I mean like Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, silly. It would be Rocket Man. But William Sadler's in that. And then there he is in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey as none other than Death himself. All painted white with, he's almost like the Grim Reaper, basically. So the cast, they do a fine job. I have no problem with the cast. I have no problem with the characters. What I do have a little bit of problem with is the movie itself. Now, when I was watching this the other day, and this was a hard watch, I'm not going to lie about that. I'm just going to jump right in and say, this wasn't an easy watch of a movie. I watched it, many years ago when I was a teen. I watched it maybe a decade ago, just a YouTube copy of it, and then I watched it maybe a few days ago. But when I watched it a few days ago, I was rewatching it over, actually 2 days. And it was difficult to get through, but I knew that I almost abandoned it at one point. I'd written out the itinerary. I was going to finish it up because I typically watch movies at nighttime. And I was just like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to spend my time finishing this movie. But I am going to give you my favorite scene of the movie. And so at this one part in the movie, Bill and Ted, they're killed. They're thrown over a cliff. But when they wake up, they are, they realize that they're dead, that no one else can see them. And Ted is trying to tell his dad, who works with the police, hey, I'm dead. Go looking for us. We need to save the princesses, which is their girlfriends from the first movie. Obviously, their dads can't hear them. So they slip in through his dad's ear, and kind of like take over his body. So there his dad is suddenly, because he's given like a little lecture to some of the cadets. So as his dad or Ted inside of his dad is telling the cadets, we need to send out a search party, dude, to go look for Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan and things like this. And then he's like, dude, I don't think it's working, man. So Bill jumps into the partner ear, takes over his body, and starts talking, kind of that surfer dude. Yeah, dude, hey, man, they're not listening to anything we got to say. Oh, look at those donuts, man. Those are groovy. Let me have some of those donuts. So they start talking like Scooby-Doo, basically, and Shaggy, through their dad in the partner's body, telling the cadets, hey, we need to be looking out for them because there's some robots that have killed us. That's basically what they're saying. And it's a ridiculous scene, but it did make me smile. It made me smirk. Did I laugh out loud? No, I did not. Will you laugh out loud? I don't know. Depends on what kind of comedy you like. You like Ricky Bobby? You like The Cable Guy? Do you like, Friends with Money? It just depends on what level of comedy that you like if you're going to laugh at this comedy. Especially that scene. My least favorite scene, I got to be honest, the opening scene is a drag. It's a bore. They don't open the movie with Bill or Ted playing guitars, getting into some kind of mischief, setting up that they're, something about their lives. It starts off with the villain infiltrating the station, I guess. I don't think it's the station. I think it's wherever the future that they're living. This area. I'm not even sure what it is really. Like a big room, it looks like. That's not a good scene. The opening, it's boring. The villain, the main villain, is basically bookending them. He's at the beginning and pretty much a small piece in the middle and at the end. And the robots are basically the main bad guys, villains, or Bill and Ted as they're dumped into, quote, hell. They're in like this little tunnel with all these different doors. And each door that they open, it's their own personal, it's like Bill's he's getting constantly kissed on by a nasty grandmother. And Ted's he's constantly being yelled at by a military sergeant telling him to do infinity amount of push-ups. So Satan has pretty much told them, you choose how you want to spend eternity. Here's your options. They're trying to get out. Death is guiding them through that, William Sadler. And the only way that they can get out is if they beat Death at a series of games. Really one game, but they choose the games. And that's kind of a fun scene too. They're playing Battleship. They do a couple of, I'm trying to think some of the other games that they play. Because I thought I'd forgotten about that. But they play a couple of games, and those are amusing scenes. Anytime Death is in the film, it's a better movie until the end. And then the end is basically, spoiler alert, it's not good. I mean, I don't know if you could hear, but like the wind went out of my voice. It's not good. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be, in line with the first film, and I guess it is in a way. But it's not nearly as entertaining. The end is basically they're playing a song again. They went back in time to stop the bad guy from doing what he was going to do. I mean, and there are some good guitar riffs and things like that from the 80s and 90s. And here's something else I thought about. I didn't want to leave this out. Now, there are these two creatures, and I had the sound down a little bit low during this. But these two creatures, and I don't even know what I could say that they would look like. They look like a worse version of Domo. If you know what Domo is, look up Domo. Or I think they're even called Station, to be honest with you. Bill and Ted Bogus Journey Station. So they're like these creatures, but somehow they fall into one another and just become one. And this creature helps them and tags along, and it's so unnecessary, and it's kind of a grotesque creature. So why would you want this on the screen for the time that it's on there for a laugh? Because you're not going to get laughs from this stupid thing. Why did you put it in there? Now, I'm not mad. I'm just saying it's completely unnecessary and ridiculous. And I think it's called Station because they edited out part of the other like I guess subplot with this creature. But they'd already spent the money and you'll just have to look it up. Probably one of the best things other than the actual Bill and Ted and Death is the soundtrack, which we're listening to. That's the Reaper right there. But yeah, it's got Faith No More, Megadeth, Kiss, Primus. So if you like this 80s and 90s rock. So I would just check out the soundtrack on Spotify or YouTube other than watch the movie for the soundtrack. Now, I do like the poster. That's something we always talk about. The poster of the movie is basically Bill and Ted. It looks like they're, fallen and they're smashed into like the glass window. Their face is kind of smushed against it. And Death is standing behind them with a grin on his face. It's an effective poster. I enjoy it. The DVD, the cover art of the DVD and the Blu-ray is a little bit different. It varies. Right now, this creature, I wish I could show everyone. I don't even know, but it's at the very end of the Reaper song, that creature I was telling you all about. And it was more grotesque then than I even remember it being just from a few days ago. But yeah, the soundtrack is, if you like this kind of music, you're going to enjoy the soundtrack to Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. But to give a little bit of a recap, though, would I recommend Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey? No. No, I would not. It's bogus. It is a bogus journey that you're going to take if you go down this road and rewatch the film. Now, if you do like silly, over-the-top comedy, you might like this. It's not nearly as... I don't remember it. I remember it being better or more enjoyable. And it could have been because I was younger when I first saw it. Whereas, if I go back and watch the first Bill and Ted, how am I going to think about that? I don't know. My tastes have changed a little. But I would assume that I would look back more fondly on the first one than this one. So no, with all good consciousness, I cannot. I said consciousness. With all good conscience, I cannot recommend Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I think you're going to be wasting your time if you've got any scenes that you remember from childhood. Or you could just look up Bill and Ted Bogus Journey best scenes. And you could probably see those scenes in a matter of 5 or 6 minutes. If you want to go back and watch, a far superior Keanu Reeves movie around this time, Point Break would be the one with Alex Winter. I would dare say check out Freaked. I think it's called Freaked. Because he's like an actor, and this is Alex Winter. He's an actor, and he goes to audition, but he ends up auditioning for... It turns out not to be an audition at all. There's like a mad scientist trying to, turn people into freaks. And go on a, like circus freaks kind of thing. So yeah, do not check out Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I think it's a waste of your time. And I think this is one of the only movies where I'd said don't check it out. Even Death Becomes Her, which has some good moments, is much better than this. But yeah, the soundtrack is probably the best part of the movie. But thank you for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk on 92.5 WLSD The Vault. You can also listen on AM 1220 and WLSDradio.com. As always, please check out our Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, and Instagram. And we will be back in just a moment for another episode of The Other People Show. Have a good night.